Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. If you're not new here, you know that we have been gradually putting together the pieces to do a bedroom makeover for my sister Katie. A couple months back, we reupholstered a thrifted bed for a luxe velvet look, and today we're going to be completing a few more projects for that space in preparation for doing a full room makeover next month, I think. We're going to be doing a super simple thrift flip makeover on these sconces that will go on either side of the bed. I'm going to be trying my hand at creating a custom light switch cover using my laser engraver. And then for the biggest impact, we're going to be creating a giant custom mural screen using thrifted doors that will go on the wall behind the bed. If you watched last week's hand-painted mural video and you're wanting a mural vibe in your space, but you're not sure you have the painting skills, or if you're a renter that doesn't want to shell out tons of money on a wallpaper mural only to move in a couple of years, this might be a great solution for you. And as we tackle these three projects, I'm going to be talking about 3 design mistakes that I see a lot lately. I hate to use the word mistake because design is really personal, but if something is feeling off about your space and you don't know what it is, this might be the problem. So stay tuned for that. Lots to talk about today. Let's get to it. Okay. Before we get started today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for 2 reasons. First of all the projects that we're doing in this space aren't really going to get a reveal. They're all going to go into a bedroom, which is not where I currently am. So that's coming down the line, and I really want you to see how these look in the space. Also, we're very close to hitting 50,000 subscribers, which is crazy. So many people watched the mural video. Thank you so much. If you're new from that video, say hi. But yeah, we have such an awesome community of people here. I'm so grateful for you guys. Let's hit 50K together. Okay, so let's jump into thrift flipping these little sconces that I got at the movie prop warehouse sale a couple months ago. You may remember that we only spent $30 on that massive haul in that video, so these sconces were basically free. They're pretty simple in shape, but I was drawn to the two-tone metal look. However, the brushed nickel part isn't my jam, especially for this space, so the plan is to spray these in an oil-rubbed bronze finish to make them look a bit more sophisticated and more in line with our design. I start by masking off the brass areas with painter's tape, since we want to leave those untouched. These sconces are not the most insane design moment ever, but they will be super functional and give a great warm but practical light once we add the shades. Which brings me to mistake number 1, choosing a light fixture solely based on the way that it looks and not thinking about the light that it's going to give off in the space. This seems kind of obvious, but I'm surprised by how many design shows I've seen lately where people install these super cool lights that I know will either not be practical and not provide the light that you need for that task, or will be really harsh and glaring and hard to look at when they're lit up at night. And you wouldn't know that because they never shoot them with the lights on any point. So it looks really good during the daytime, it's cool and sculptural, but either it's totally useless or won't give the room a very nice vibe at night. So instead, consider fixtures with shades for soft diffused light in bedrooms and cozy spaces, and opaque sculptural pieces in practical spaces that will give off adequate light for the task but not be overly harsh. With the taping done, we can spray these in oil rubbed bronze, trying to cover evenly and avoid any drips or buildup. Since these are a swing arm, we needed to change the angle midway to get to all the areas. Not bad. These might need a few touch-ups when we install them, but they look good for now. I found these new shades for $9 each at home that I think will complete the look nicely. So let's move on to prep work for our mural screen project. I chose this large wallpaper mural to use in Katie's bedroom because I wanted a bold statement to fill up this wall and balance the other side of the room with the dressers and mirrors. The Japanese style works well with a lot of the Asian pieces throughout this house, but feels a little bit more modern to fit the boutique hotel vibe that we wanted here. Something about putting this directly on the wall felt a little bit cheap somehow, so I'd rather mount the mural on something else and hang that on the wall to create more of an architectural feature. I was originally thinking plywood, but that can get expensive and heavy, so we ended up going for hollow interior doors. The white one came out of my parents' garage, and the other 4 we got on Facebook Marketplace for $10 each. They're pretty beat up, so I arranged them with the worst areas at the bottom where they'll be less visible. I also make sure to place them with the previous hinge attachments downward so that the top surface will be flat. I also peel away any paint that's loose so that our paper will be able to adhere fully. We're going to be working on this project at my parents' house since I didn't have enough floor space to lay everything out. So shout out to my parents for letting us use their space. Next, we need to fill the holes where the old doorknobs were. My dad planes down a 2x4 so that it will match the depth of our doors. Then he drills a hole through the 2x4 with a hole saw, stopping once the center of the bit drills through, and then drilling from the other side to create a round cutout that will fit nicely into the hole in the door.
That's it.
Now we can hold it in place with wood glue and some little shreds of wood that he uses to shim it in. And repeat for all of our doors. After these dry, he finishes off the prep process by filling any holes or dents in the doors with wood filler, including the gaps around the doorknob patches. After leaving these to dry and then sanding them down, they're ready to go. Now, one of the main functions for this screen in Katie's bedroom is to provide an attachment point for the sconces and also for these mid-century nightstands that I thrifted at the REISSUED for $50 each. I really wanted them to be up off the floor and floating, and so we needed a solid way to attach them. So even though the hollow doors were a great choice for keeping this whole thing lightweight, my dad had to cut open the backs of the 2 outside doors to add wood structure to support the sconces and nightstands. This will be critical for creating sturdy attachment points for the added elements. So while he finishes that up, let's get started on the light switch. I drew up a design digitally using pen and ink imagery from the digital archives on Flickr. I pulled a lot of gorgeous historical drawings, but I ended up narrowing things down to these hands, this triangle thing, and this beautiful moth. I arranged them around where the switch would go and added some of my own Art Deco inspired lines to connect and frame the elements. I wanted to simplify the line work a bit, and since I'm terrible at doing anything digital, we're gonna do this manually. So I opted to print my design and trace it over with new line work. This allowed me to choose the elements of the line work that felt most important for the new design, and to shift things around to connect the elements, like the moth antennae with the fingernails, the wings with the Art Deco lines, and the finger shading with those radiating triangle lines. Then I scanned this in and vectorized it with Inkscape so that it would be ready to engrave. So Matt and I pulled out my Falcon 2 Pro laser cutter and engraver from Creality, which is the sponsor of today's video. We started by testing the design on some scrap basswood, just to see how the lines would look, and to ensure that the design would be okay in this format. While we wait, we tested this laser marking spray onto some brass hinges that we found at the REISSUED. The idea is that the laser will bond this to the brass and the rest will just wipe off. Sounds crazy, right? Our wood design turned out amazing, so let's see how the laser works on the marking spray. The Creality Falcon 2 Pro has a built-in camera that allows you to place your design more accurately on the material. And the 40-watt laser is powerful enough to engrave wood, acrylic, and stainless steel, but of course I wanted these to be brass, hence the marking spray, so let's give this a go. After a little test area, we pull it out and clean off the paint with a little water and Dawn soap, and this looks amazing. We tried one more test with the 40-watt laser at 100% power rather than 40%, and that looks even better. Oh, so pretty. Wow. So let's spray our brass light switch, and when it's dry, we can fine-tune the placement and see how this goes. Okay, we're doing this. Are we ready? Are you ready, Matt?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Now, this took a while. It took just over an hour for this to engrave, partly because my design was so complicated, and partly because I had to do one pass for the line work and another for the fill where my thicker lines were. I think I could hone my vector design to make this faster in the future, but the Falcon 2 Pro did an amazing job achieving clear and detailed lines, despite my super complicated design. Alright, it's ready, so let's wipe it off and check out the finished look. I'm gonna try it out in my bedroom just to show it in action. I think think I could have gotten a little more precise with the placement since it's a bit high, but all in all, I love the polish and the detail that it's adding to this space, which brings me to design mistake number 2, only focusing on the big things. Sometimes with design, we hear a lot about paint color, we think about furniture layout, we think about the really big things, but forget about the small things, either functional problems or little design issues, visible cords, visible clutter. These are things that we kind of forget to see, but that ultimately make such a big impact in our space, even though they're small. So if something is feeling off in your space and the big things are in check, get out a magnifying glass and look at the little things, especially those practical things. If it can be beautiful, why not make it beautiful? So yeah, I love this light switch. I'm hoping that maybe I can fine tune the design a little bit and crank these out faster. Maybe put these up as a product available on my website. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And thank you so much to Creality for sending me this product and for sponsoring this video. If you're interested in checking out the Creality Falcon 2 Pro, I'm gonna link the information down in the description box so you can check that out. All right, the doors are prepped. Let's pull out the wallpaper and get to work on the screen. Our mural is in 4 panels, so I marked the center of the center door to ensure that we get the mural centered. Then we can lay all the pieces out and come up with a plan. Our mural is wider than the fronts of our doors added up, so we have 2-inch spacers in between to simulate the spacing once we add wood strips around the edges. I didn't want to cut the mural and continue it on the next panel since it needs to look like the image continues and lines up even with the 2-inch gap between the panels. So our plan is to start at the outside and apply the far left and right panels along the edges of the doors. Then we'll do the center panel with the seam in the center and go from there. Our mural is also a bit too tall for our doors, so I measured 3 inches up from the bottom and mark and fold that so that we have a clear starting point when placing each panel. Next, I paint the door with this heavy-duty wallpaper paste. This is the same stuff that we used for the faux croc vinyl in my half bathroom and the DIY PAX doors in my bedroom, and both of those projects have held up really well. Here, we're unrolling the panel fully and trying to align it with the edge. However, we found later that it was much easier to unroll a bit at a time and adjust the alignment. After we get it mostly lined up and smoothed down, I cut away the excess, leaving about a 1/2 inch along the edge. My dad has this heavy roller tool that is super helpful for smoothing out wrinkles and bubbles. At this point, panic ensued. We realized that we had aligned the wrong edge and then cut off the wrong part of the mural. So we quickly pulled it back up and started with the offcut piece and then tried to line things up as well as possible to make the seam invisible. And honestly, this worked great. You can't see the seam at all. It's awesome. So now we continue to repeat this process for the other outside panel. This mural also came in a peel and stick version, but it was more expensive that way, and I've historically had a better experience with glue on rather than peel and stick, so this was a win. The mural was still around $135, which is what got me thinking about renter-friendly solutions and making those dollars last. I know that when I was a renter, I would want to be able to take my expensive mural with me. The mural had a tab at the top showing the overlap line, which was about 1 inch, so I marked that and drew a new line at that point so that we could align our first panel at the center seam. After applying the first side, I applied glue to the other side, going a bit on top of the paper where the seam would overlap. Then we aligned the other panel on top so that each element of the design lines up all the way down. And once the seam looks good, we can roll out the wrinkles and make everything nice and smooth. We repeat this again for the last 2 panels, overlapping the offcuts from the outermost and center panels and trying to get the remaining papers centered on the door. Wallpapering is done. The final step here is going to be creating a frame out of scrap 2x4s that we had on hand. My dad cut these down into 1-inch strips so that we'll have a 1-inch border around each door. We opted to do this just to make sure everything was going to be wide enough for our furniture. Once we added up the bed and the nightstands, our doors were not going to be wide enough to go on the outside of that, so we needed the extra width. However, if you don't need the extra width and want to have a simpler route, you can just trim your wallpaper right to the edges of the doors, paint the sides of the doors, and then go in with an edge banding on the front edge just to make everything look nice and polished. This is what we did on the PAX doors in my bedroom, so if you want more details on that, go watch that video. Once all the pieces are cut, sanded, and primed, my mom painted them in the shade Caviar from Valspar in a satin finish. I had this paint on hand from my house, and I love the warmth of this black shade. Meanwhile, my dad and I finished prepping the doors for trim by cutting all the paper to about 1/2 inch beyond the edge of the door, folding it down crisply, and stapling it. This is just to hold it in place when we attach our trim, so we aren't placing tons of staples or anything. With the trim dry and doors prepared, we can cut the strips to length. We measure every side of every door, just in case there are minor discrepancies. We want these frames to fit tightly, but also not to be too short and have gaps. With our measurements written down, my dad cuts one end of the trim at a 45-degree angle, and then we measure and mark the length on the inside edge of that angle to match the side of the door. Then he cuts at the opposite 45-degree angle with the marked line on the inside edge. With all 4 pieces cut, we test the fit, make any trims if necessary, and then secure the frame at the corners with a nail gun. We start at the corners so that those line up perfectly, then attach the frame to the door on all sides, being sure to press both the door and frame firmly into the floor to be sure that they're flush at the back. One down, 4 to go. As we carry on putting together a massive wall of pieces, I'm getting excited about how much impact this is going to have in the bedroom space. Which brings me to mistake number 3, being afraid to go big. It's incredible how much larger a space can feel when some element of the room, whether that be curtains or bookcases or a mural, go all the way up to the ceiling or pretty high in the room to fill that big empty wall. However, making a grand gesture often means taking a big risk, which is why I often see people putting together a lot of smaller, less scary things and then wondering why their space doesn't feel right. I love this project because it's a grand gesture for sure, but it's not permanent, so it feels a little less scary. So if you're thinking about a mural or you feel like your space needs a grand gesture but you're afraid to commit, this project might be a great place to start. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoy how these projects turned out. This is going to be one of those videos where we don't really have a real reveal. Again, we're going to be installing all of these elements in my sister's bedroom in Florida. The bed, which we finished a couple months ago, is currently down there in the room. We're going to be making the trip down there, I think, next month to install everything into the space. So again, be sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss when we put everything together. When we go to actually mount these on the wall, we are going to be using a French cleat. That's one of the things that kind of goes on the back and then links on the top like this so that it's held in place and tight against the wall. That's going to support the weight of the nightstand and the sconce and everything, so it's going to be a great solution. I wish we could have hung them for you in this video so that if you're working on this project at home, you could have that information. But again, stay tuned for that video coming up. I'll be sure to give you all the details then. If you enjoyed this video and like how these projects turned out, be sure to hit the like button. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.